Okay, I want to welcome the viewership of Ion Piscataway for the first interview of January 2021, and we're very fortunate enough to have our very own state senator Robert Smith. Most people know him as Bob, to come on the show and tell us a little bit about what happened in 2020 in the legislature. And I know he's been in the thick of things down there, and then what his expectations are for 2021. And so, Bob, we got about a half hour, 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, give or take. Why don't you go ahead and do an intro? And I know you got a slew of things that you can speak to that affect not just the Piscataway residents, but residents in New Jersey in general that may be interested. So you could take it away. I don't know if you want to go back to the past 2020 or have the new 2021 initiative. So.
Well, you can't talk about 2021 without talking about 2020.
Yeah.
We're all suffering from the pandemic, and whether you have the disease or you don't, it's changed your entire life. I'm a grandpapa, and very, very limited contact with my grandchildren unless it's some kind of a remote contact. And you're in the supermarket with your mask on. You're not people are generally not going to restaurants or to any kind of entertainment venue. So our life has dramatically changed. And at the same time, the national government focused on accelerating the development of vaccines, effective vaccines for COVID. And right now we have in the United States the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine approved, and they are beginning to be shipped out to various facilities around the country. And in terms of last year, forgetting what the state of New Jersey did, which was huge, we probably met more often to get stuff done for the pandemic, and including trying to deal with rent relief and the tremendous impact on the economy of the state, but without going into that too much because it really is hugely detailed. But and people are always welcome to call our office. And as a matter of fact, one of the biggest things we did in 2020 was to try and help people get their unemployment claims processed. You may remember that the Department of Labor had real problems and still has real problems with its computers. So our legislative offices were kind of overwhelmed with trying to deal with hundreds and maybe close to or between more than 1,000 and 2,000 claims from citizens in the district and trying to help them get processed and whatever. But that's a little bit off the topic in the sense that we're looking at the big picture. The big picture is we now have two effective vaccines, and they are starting to be rolled out. And I think, as everybody who is listening to the program knows, there is a priority order in which the vaccines are being administered. And in the case of New Jersey, every state sets up its own priority. In the case of New Jersey, the very top of the list are hospital workers and first responders. And for the obvious reasons, they're in touch or in contact with COVID patients or people that they may be transporting, or police officers involved in that kind of contact as well. So number one on the list is getting the hospital employees and the first responders covered. Second priority are elders. We have more than 500 nursing home, convalescent care, congregate care, living, and the death statistics, which are awesome. You know, as we know, we're I think now over 350,000 Americans that are dead from COVID, and probably more because many, I'm sure, were not counted. But 40% of them 40% of that 350,000 were elders, seniors, and most heavily those who were in nursing homes, convalescent care, or congregate care living. And so the second priority is getting those seniors vaccinated. And the state of New Jersey has contracts with a number of pharmacy companies that are going right to the nursing home and administering those vaccines. And that will help to deal with that population. And then the third priority, and I think the age should start sooner, a little earlier, but the third priority are people 75 and over. And then the fourth priority is 65 and over. Now, I'm hoping that, Mayor, the technicians on our program today are going to be able to put on the screen the access number, or the website for COVID vaccine registration. And even if you're not a first responder, if you're further down on the list, it's worth your while to get registered. And then my understanding is that they will then contact you with as that tier moves on, as the vaccinations are administered, they will then contact you to set up an appointment for you to come in and get your vaccine. So I will tell you, Mayor, what I tell everybody in my family, which is if you can live through the next 4 months, you can live another 40 years. But you got to get through the 4 months. And I think what that means is that we're all going to have to still be socially distanced. We're all going to wear our masks. We're all going to use the hand sanitizer, all the things that we've been told to do. And if we can get the population vaccinated with these very effective vaccines, we're going to make it. But it requires everybody's cooperation. And that's why I'd urge you to register on the registration line that hopefully we're putting on the screen, and follow the rules. And if you do that, I think we're going to have a much better 2021 than we had in 2020.
Yeah.
And I know you, Mayor, are doing your best to help everybody in Piscataway with the COVID situation. So,
and you're absolutely correct, Senator. I do know that we, working through the County Department of Health as well as the State Department of Health, there is a coordinated effort. I think at this point right now, obviously there's not enough vaccination to go around. But I know one of the glitches now that they're concerned about, that once, I think it's the Moderna vaccination, once it's opened up, the vial has 10 shots. And if you don't have all the people there lined up, there's, they don't want anything going, to spoil, because there's a limited quantity and supply at this point. But, there's going to be some bumps in the road during the vaccination procedures. That's expected, because when you're potentially vaccinating well over 300 million plus people throughout the country, that's bound to happen. But I could honestly say, like here locally in Piscataway, through the county, we have potential sites set up ready to go, if and when there's enough amount of A, personnel to administer it, plus B, the actual vaccination itself. And, we want everybody to take the vaccination. I do know that there's some anti-vaxxers out there in society, but, this is treated no differently than, say, like polio. My late grandfather was one that had polio back in the when he was a young kid, and he walked with a limp for, when I was a child until he passed away in the mid-'70s. And, I can remember, Senator probably could do, when the polio vaccination came out, it was mandatory for school-age children and everybody to go in and take the polio shot or the candy or whatever there. And it was highly successful, that everybody from the general public knew the risks that if not everybody vaccinated, because there's a lot of people that saw people who did have polio within their own families, of the significance of it if they didn't take the vaccination. And I think this is a similar circumstances, that people got to set aside, in some cases, their beliefs, and take the vaccination for the good of your general neighbors, your family members, and everybody else. Because I think they were saying, some of the experts, at a bare minimum, you need anywhere from 70 to 75% of the general public that really needs to be vaccinated in order for this to really take into full effect for the general public. So it's going to be curious to see over the next, a year or so, depending upon how long it's going to take to get it to that point. And then I guess, quite frankly, I think you've seen some are saying even after the vaccination rounds are done, if not everybody's vaccinated, you're still going to have to potentially be wearing your mask.
Yeah.
This may be the new norm out there, not just for medical reasons, but I don't know. We're all lay people in this. We're not the Dr. Fauci's of this world. However, we do have to just listen to some of the local experts that we have here, between the medical school that we're lucky and fortunate enough to have, Rutgers Medical School, within our community, which is the nerve center for the state response right here in Piscataway, New Brunswick. So we're fortunate in that respect. And I know you've spoken to a lot of the state health experts yourselves.
Absolutely. We try to stay as briefed as we can be about current developments. As a matter of fact, tomorrow there's a call with Governor Murphy about what is the latest in the vaccine situation allocation. And that's with the entire legislature. 120 people call in, and then they hear it from Governor Murphy and the Commissioner of Health, Judy Percicelli. And the front office has been very communicative. And then I have to give a lot of credit, Mayor, to Freeholder Ron Rios, the county commissioner director, no longer freeholders, commissioners, and the entire county staff, because they, as well, will hold weekly or bi-weekly calls with all the mayors and health officials in Middlesex County. And as a result, I think Middlesex County will be in the front of the curve in terms of getting the vaccines administered. They have a very elaborate plan once the vaccines are in hand. So, and then the biggest news on the vaccine front is that you now have a third vaccine, AstraZeneca, that has been approved in Great Britain, and they say they can produce 3 billion, with a B, not M with a million, 3 billion doses very, very quickly. So once they get approved in the United States, I think we're going to have more than adequate supply for everybody, general public as well. And the general public, I didn't mention that the tiers, but once you get to the 65 category, the general public follows immediately, and it'll be available to everybody. And as you said, I also urge everyone, get that vaccine as soon as you can. So that's the latest and greatest on COVID. You asked the general question, so what else is going on? And this is non-COVID, but it's something that is also public health related. We've been trying for about 8 years to pass a law concerning single-use plastic bags, styrofoam, and plastic straws. And I'm happy to report to you that the governor, it passed both houses. This is, again, after 8 years. Mm-hmm. You can imagine how tough this bill is and how many issues there are associated with it. But the bill passed and the governor signed it. And what it does, and it will affect everybody in Piscataway, in fact, for that matter, everybody in the state of New Jersey, is to reduce the amount of plastic that's in the environment. And let me tell you the reason why. Plastic is literally killing us. Now, when people talk about plastics, they think of the continent of plastics that are in the Pacific Ocean, mm-hmm. and the other continent of plastics that are in the Atlantic Ocean, and they're thinking of it as an aesthetic problem or a problem for fish and sea mammals. Truth is, it's a huge problem for human beings. We're finding plastic particles, microplastics, nanoplastics everywhere. When you eat a fish that's been caught in the Atlantic Ocean, when you eat a fish that's caught in the Raritan River, in the tissue of the fish are these very small plastic particles, and they bring with them a whole bunch of organic chemicals, some of which are suspected carcinogens. And it's not just in the fish that we consume. It's in the air that we breathe. It's in the water that we drink. These microplastics are literally everywhere. So it is a major health problem. And by the way, that information comes from Rutgers, Princeton, and JIT. We had many, many hearings on the plastics problem, and they pointed out that they are pervasive. If you go to the top of the Alps and do air testing, you get piles of plastic particles in the tested air. So they're everywhere. You got to start reducing the plastics that we're putting in to the environment every year, and this is one major way to do it. Think about every time you go to the market. I know you do a lot of the grocery shopping.
I do 99% of the grocery shopping.
All right, and I'm sure your wife is not going to resent that you said that. And by the way, I do about 90% of the grocery shopping, and my wife's not going to resent it either. But
Senator, before we get on, just as a quick side note for all those spouses that do the grocery shopping for your households, my wife is now wised up. She actually goes online at ShopRite and finds the aisle that the product's in. So I now do not have an excuse saying I couldn't find it.
I'm not going to go there, Mayor. So in any case, when you get on in that checkout line, you get all these plastic single-use bags. They go into your garbage can. They go to a landfill someplace. They're very, very poorly recycled and very small numbers. And they just start that process of breaking down into smaller and smaller particles and getting in our air and water. So what the bill does, and this starts in May of 2022. And what it does is to ban single-use plastic bags. It also regulates straws. Straws will be available in restaurants only upon request. And that was an issue related to the disabled community. Many disabilities need straws. So, but they don't want it to be a big deal. So the easiest way to handle it is to make it available upon request. And then of course the convenient product that we're always using, styrofoam packaging, it's banned as well. So we're going to be going to a whole bunch of alternatives. And again, the styrofoam, same thing. They break down into microplastics. They're in your body, et cetera, et cetera. So during the period of time from the bill's execution to the May of 2022, the state of New Jersey is going to conduct an intensive educational campaign so people understand why these things are so bad. And we're also going to give away some free returnable grocery bags so that, we're helping in the process. And my guess is that most supermarket chains are probably going to offer free returnable bags, of course, with their advertising on the front of the bag, but they are not that expensive. Just requires that we remember to bring them into the market. And I'm a big proponent. When I go to the market, I most of the time remember, but every once in a while I don't remember, and you need to go back out to your car and get the returnable bag, which is a major hassle. So the world is going to change, hopefully for the better on COVID, but it's also going to change on our use of plastics because they literally are killing us. And so the bill is signed. I think it's an 8-year effort. So I think we're going to be helping the environment greatly, starting with officially with 2022. But a lot of people are already using the returnable bags now. And when you go to your local supermarket, you'll frequently see the returnable bags either as a promotion or for a small price they're available.
Well, that's what I was giving by my kids for a Christmas present, returnable bags.
So not too off color, but a story.
Mm,
That in real life, I'm an attorney.
mm,
So one of the things attorneys do during holiday time is they'll give many of their clients little gifts.
mm.
So my gift this year to my clients was a returnable bag.
Mm.
Inside the returnable bag was a bottle of New Jersey Beach vodka, and
New
then
Jersey
I
Beach
put
vodka. They actually make something?
the Beach Badge vodka. Yes,
Okay.
it is actually distilled in New Jersey, but there was a note with it, and the note with it said, "Happy Holidays. Uh, Governor Murphy signed my single-use plastic bag ban bill, which after May of 2022, you're not going to be able to use single-use plastic bags. You're not going to be receiving them. So here is a holiday gift for you of a returnable bag that will hold up to 50 pounds of materials. Oh, and by the way, the bottle of vodka is to help you get through the transition." So I've got a lot of responses on that. That was a pretty ingenious holiday gift. But so
Well,
anyway,
Senator, you were just, you said it took almost 8 years to get
yep,
to the point signing. What were some of the pitfalls as you were going along? I mean, because I don't think a lot of people realize that, like, sometimes, people sometimes think local government or even state government operates at two speeds, slow and stop. But, the general public has to understand, like, sometimes when you sponsor a bill in order to get it through, there's a lot of interest, people that have different opinions about a bill, depending
right,
upon what the subject is.
right,
And they might want to, obviously have their 2 cents to get their, initiative included in it. But
right.
were some of the major pitfalls that you had
Sure.
to do
So
as in the 8 years? I mean,
I mentioned one already, which was the plastic straws. All right. And we started with the bill that just banned them. And then we received input from the disability community that would not work for them, and that they needed to be on request. That's when we looked around the country at other plastic laws, that's the way in which it was handled. So that was one issue. Another issue with the polystyrene, the styrofoam. You had a number of companies or industries saying, we can't do that. It's too much. There's no feasible alternative. So there is an appeal process where if you have an industry that says they can't find a feasible alternative, they can make a request to the DEP for a temporary waiver. All right, so we set up that system. And then the next thing, the world of plastics is going to change dramatically. So we set up a plastics advisory council, which will continue to take testimony and take input and make recommendations with regard to future legislation. And then you get down to the point where you say, well, who should be on the council? How many representatives of industry? How many environmental groups? How many from government? So we got that done. And then there was a big concern that lower income New Jerseyans might have a problem with the returnable bags. So we ended up with a commitment from the governor to put $500,000 in the budget for 3 years for this educational program to tell people why it's so important, but also to have some free returnable bags to help out disadvantaged communities in terms of their population. Also, too, during that 8 years, there were more than 100 towns in New Jersey that set up their own plastics ordinances. All right. And what this bill does is that it says that those ordinances stay in effect until the May 2022 starting date, at which point everything in the state is now the state law. So it preempts the local ordinances. And the reason being, of course, is you can't have 567 versions of a plastics ordinance. And that, by the way, is one of the reasons why the grocery stores came to the table. they were finding that, as every town passed an ordinance, they were substantially different from each other, and they were pulling their hair out. So when the final bill was put together, they were supportive because they couldn't deal with 567 ordinances.
Which seems economically, they still have to make livings because there's people still employed in these businesses there, and this is a classic case that where it really the leadership should have started at the state level to make it uniform, so business and the general public knew, so if they moved from one town to another or were visiting, everybody knows what the rules are.
So
No
tells you
secret.
why it was that's a
Yeah.
little taste of the kind of controversies that were associated with it. But during the 8 years that it took to get it done, so every time you'd get one issue solved, the next issue would pop up. And I think we now have a pretty good bill. And don't be surprised that 5 or 6 years from now, there's additional plastics legislation, because this stuff, it really is killing us. And we have to really dramatically decrease how much we produce each year. And by the way, the follow-up legislation, we're doing a follow-up bill. The follow-up bill is recycled content legislation. So one of the problems, because you budget for this.
Yes.
At one time, the recycling that we were doing in Piscataway and all the other towns generally for newspapers, aluminum cans, and for glass bottles, normally we would break even on that in the municipal budget. There was a marketplace for recycled materials. Once China 3 years ago said, we're not taking the rest of the world's garbage, they were, all this stuff the recyclables were being loaded on a tanker and taken to China. Once China said, we're done with that, there was now no longer a market. And as a result, instead of the recycling that you do covering your costs, doesn't cover your costs anymore. And because that recycling industry has been reduced tremendously, the recycled materials are frequently going into a landfill, which increases your tipping fees. So that's starting to come out of the taxpayers' hide.
Yeah, and I think just to highlight what the senator's talking about, so when we here in Piscataway and in some of the other towns that may be in the viewership, we have the Middlesex County Improvement Authority that has Solitaire through a contract to come around and pick up the recyclings twice a week. And as the senator just said a moment ago, that used to be a break-even point. Now, it's now costing towns anywhere from 3 to 4 times the amount of money in their local budgets. We're now paying companies to take it away, where in the past, you didn't have to do that. So thus, it's driving up the costs,
Right.
Otherwise, it's just going to the landfill, which defeats the whole purpose on why you want it to recycle, because landfill space is at a premium.
Right. So the point of the recycled content legislation, which is currently being put together, and we've had a couple of hearings on it already, actually 3 hearings already. The point of that is to create recycling markets. All right. If we're indicating how much paper, what the paper content for paper has to be, the recycled paper content, that's creating a market again, so that hopefully that helps to reduce the costs. And likewise with glass bottles, how much has to be recycled glass? And again, the whole point of that is better environment, get it out of the environment so it's not going to be a contaminant or eating up landfill space, and also to help municipalities, responsible ones like Piscataway, who are doing a good job recycling, to help cut costs so the taxpayers aren't paying for it to be landfill. It's now being sold as a recyclable material, and it's required in the content of the bottles or paper or whatever that's sold in New Jersey. So there's some method to that madness.
It's also in the same breath that now the recycling's commingled, where in the past everything used to have to be separated because industry now just commingle it. It's just easier to separate it at the site, and so the dynamics of recycling in the plastics industry has changed drastically over the last 20 years. And I suspect with a lot of the new legislation and new laws going into place that industry will respond eventually, and new technologies in that industry will come out. as with any other innovations in any other industries that where they seek a market, they look to solve the problem.
Right. And by the way, just like the plastics ban, the single-use plastic ban bill, the recycled content bill, solve
Yeah.
one issue, next one pops up.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's complicated.
these are all things that are going to affect daily lives of everybody, not just in Piscataway, but around the state of New Jersey. So,
Absolutely.
you also had one or two other initiatives that you were talking about, if I remember.
Sure. We got to pile them. I chair the Senate Energy and Environment Committee. So a lot of our energy stuff is dramatically changing the New Jersey tremendously. We did the OREC legislation to help get our wind industry actually being built offshore. And we're going to, I think in 2021-22, we're going to see our first wind farm
Well,
starting.
I think for those people, they've always heard about wind farms off the ocean. Why? I mean, I know having to deal with other mayors along the East Coast, understand, especially the mayor of New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is going to be a primary manufacturing site in the Northeast. But why is it so between Virginia to say Massachusetts? Why is that section of the ocean so valuable for wind energy?
Because it has a terrific amount of wind.
Yeah.
And almost constant. One of the things with any renewable source of energy, you don't want it to start, stop, stop. And that's one of the issues with solar. You have nighttime and you have cloudy days and whatever, but the wind off the Atlantic coast, constant, just keeps on firing away and with a lot of force. And there's a lot of energy in there to be gained, but the capital costs of building a wind farm are huge. We now have Ørsted, which is a European company, having won some requests for proposals. And I think they're going to be starting the first 3,500 megs of wind farm shortly, and they're bidding on additional megs of energy. So in any case, we do the legislation to make that possible, to make it more local. And I hope I'm not going to drive you crazy with this, but we're trying to accelerate electric vehicles. So we did legislation that provided a $30 million subsidy to encourage buyers to buy EV cars, but you have to have the infrastructure to charge them. So I have a bill that's actually on the Senate board list next week, which will provide an accelerated mechanism for charging infrastructure. And we're trying, not to get you crazy, man, but we're trying to get them out of the planning and zoning system.
No, the state legislature trying to make local mayors crazy. I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, well, it's that home rule stuff that gets you every time. But we're trying to make it not expensive to get a charging station, in a facility. It's going to be a permitted use in all zones, and there'll be an expedited review process.
Well, speaking of that very quickly, as you know, Senator, 3 years ago, we had introduced an ordinance that requiring any new construction of large industrial commercial sites, they required that they have a X amount of charging stations. Since that's been in play now, you've had a lot of areas in town where these businesses now have charging stations outside, and employees that work for those companies are actually coming and use it. And a classic example is front of our brand new community center. We have 6 charging stations out there. Anybody from the public can come and pull up. Typically, people go in and use the community center and they charge up their vehicles out there. And we already added the infrastructure in for an additional 6 more out there. So, once there's a grand grid of charging stations, I think you're going to see more prevalent of more of those vehicles be put in use. Because right now, it's hodgepodge. Unless you have a charging station at your house, which you do it if you have a charger, or if you go to commute to work or whatever. But if you go on vacation, you got to go with some type of map or something to find where you can get your car charged.
Absolutely. All the new Teslas have computer infrastructure in the car that'll show you where the next charging station is, but it comes down to the same basic problem. You got to have them. So we're trying to make that easier. And I would comment on your comment. Piscataway's been unbelievably progressive in terms of renewable energy systems, including I've climbed on your roof of your public works center, and it's all solar panels, and they seem to be providing most of the energy for the public works center.
Yeah, it's about 40% of the daily operational use. And in regards to that, some of the other projects that we did do in the government complex that we did engineering and structurally, engineering wise, that if we ever get a large federal grant to put another solar field up on top of the canopy systems, it's there, it's already set up for it. So, it's a little foresight in the future, but, like anything else, it does cost money to install
Yep.
these infrastructure, as you know. Now, where's the BPU in regards to this? Because I know I believe your committee has jurisdiction over the BPU.
You do.
Where does the BPU fall into all this, implementation of solar and these charging stations, or do they not?
Oh, no, they have jurisdiction. In fact, the BPU administers the electric vehicle program. So they're taking that 30 million a year for the 10 years. That's the commitment. They're using it partially for subsidies to encourage the purchase, but they're also using a portion of the money for charging infrastructure. And they and the DEP are working together to lay out the map of where the charging infrastructure should be, where it's going to be most beneficial to New Jersey drivers. So they're in that game heavily, and they work with us very well. The DPU president, Joe Fiordaliso, we try to have at least a monthly call to talk about their policies and how we can help them get New Jersey to be more renewable and more sustainable. So they're terrific. They're absolutely terrific on this issue.
Well, I do know, like when we were talking about installing it at the community center, because some of them, have swipe cards for a credit card to, whatever you pay for the electricity. We just decided that, we were just going to make it free of charge because it was not worth the aggravation doing a swipe card. So we have it on a computer system tied in with the building security that they're operational from 7 in the morning till 7 at night is when the building's open.
Right.
So, I mean, and that can always be adjusted when we get out of the COVID crisis, and we get more hours down at the community center. But, it seems to be working out every day. Every time you go by, there's always 2 or 3 cars charging up there. And,
Terrific.
And which is good. And I see that at the same with the private sector ones that have been built in Piscataway so far. So, slowly but surely, there will be a network being built up. And it's kind of funny, if you talk to folks that do own those rechargeable cars, there's like a cult following that they know where the charging stations are.
Yeah.
They make it a habit of finding out where they are.
Do you know why there's a cult following?
Why?
Because it costs half as much to travel the same distance with an electric vehicle than a fossil fuel vehicle. So they're saving operating costs every day of the year by using an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a huge economic plus.
Which I can understand. So what is the most challenging things? I know we got about another 6 or 7 minutes that, you spoke about some of the things that you've accomplished in 2020 and moving forward in 2021 when we're in the non-pandemic mode, hopefully.
Right.
What do you see some of the challenges before your committee and the state legislature?
Well, I'll tell you the biggest one at the moment, and that is grid scale solar. When you look, Governor Murphy redid the energy master plan for the state from the Chris Christie energy master plan in his first year and a half in office. And rightly so, he is directing New Jersey into a very renewable future. One thing that people are seeing a lot of is a lot more wind, but he also wants a lot more solar. And the problem with solar, and people, everybody take this the right way, we're doing an awful lot of rooftop solar on homes, and that's hugely benefit for the individual homeowner. They're getting an energy bill that's 20 or 40% less than it would normally be, so they're saving money, but it's a very small quantity of solar electricity. In order to get the amount of solar electricity to really max out, you need to do, quote, grid scale solar. So what is grid scale solar? Grid scale solar is solar that you may be putting on 10 or 20 acres of land. It's generally low to the ground. There's a lot of panels, and it generates a lot of electricity. The problem is that way back when, in the Christie administration, in order to save the solar program by accelerating the renewable portfolio standard, the governor put severe limitations on where solar can be placed in the state. It can only be on landfills, brownfields, and commercial rooftops. And the problem with that is you can't build enough solar on those locations. They're very, very small in area. And we really need about 12,000 acres of grid scale solar to meet the goals of the Energy Master Plan. So where are you going to get the 12,000 acres? And of course, if you can get it on warehouses, that's going to help. The home solar is very small in terms of quantity. But the answer is you have to go into some of our farms. Now, we have 600,000 acres of farms that are not, they're not farmland preserved, all right? So we're now trying to say, well, what do you need to do? And the answer is we need 2% of that land, 12,000 acres, to max out on our solar energy. And the pushback has been so far from some environmental groups, although some are in favor. I mean, everybody wants to meet the Energy Master Plan goals and the renewable energy so we can start carbon emissions and hopefully have an impact on global climate change. But the bill is, I had released the bill. I'm taking the bill back I think I now have the solution to that. And the solution to it is to limit any farm land that's going to be used for grid scale to 2% of the total that's available. And that as a condition of the program, that land have a farmland conservation easement. In other words, it will only be able to be used for farmland forever. And by the way, if everybody remembers back to their American history, colonial history, the way in which farmers through the years before the invention of fertilizers, they would just leave the land fallow. They'd do rotation of crops. So for the 20 or 25 years that 2% would be used for solar panels, the soil would be enriching itself through lack of stuff being grown and harvested on it. So we think that is going to be the compromise that makes it work for everybody, the enviros, farmers, BPU, everyone. So we're bringing it back to my committee next week, and we're going to have another hearing on it and go over some of these amendments, which I think may open up New Jersey to grid scale solar, and we're going to get a lot more of it and meet our energy goals for the state.
Now, if any residents in Piscataway want to take a look what a solar field looks like, you can actually go down off of Sutton's Lane on the Livingston campus at Rutgers University, and they have several of those sites that the senator was just speaking about, and also the Rutgers Athletic Center at the actual parking lot where they have the rooftop. That's a very large solar array out there. So, I mean, each solar array would look differently depending upon the topography and everything else. But ultimately, that is the gist of what it would look like out there.
Right, and it's not ugly. What you're just simply doing is taking a little bit of our farmland, 2%, off the inventory for 20 to 25 years. And at the same time, you're getting more land preserved for farmland because the easement that'll go on the property, the restrictive covenant, would only allow it to be used for farm forever. So, the question is, are you better off with 1,000 condominiums?
Yeah.
Or a solar field and the land preserved for farms forever?
Yeah. Well, there are those housing advocates that love housing and would love to see that, but we'll get.
Well, hopefully we can balance everything.
Yeah, But with that, I'd like to thank you for stopping by on Piscataway, Senator, for the opening segment of 2021 out there. So, we look forward to working with both you and your two colleagues, Senator Joe Egan and Joe Danielson out there, and for things to bring back to District 17 in Piscataway.
Absolutely. And Mayor, you and your community stay safe.
Thank you very much. I want to welcome everybody here to the 2021 swearing-in ceremony for both the mayor and at-large council members.
Please put your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Please repeat after me. I, Brian Waller,
I, Brian Waller,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
and
defend the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution
of
the State of New Jersey,
the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear
true
faith and allegiance
faith and allegiance
to the same
and
to the governments
established
established
in the United States
in the United States
and in this state,
and the state,
and that I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
justly, and impartially
impartially
perform all the duties of
Councilwoman at Large for the Township of Piscataway, according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
You're in again.
Thank you. I want to say congratulations to the mayor and to the council. Congratulations to Gabrielle. Congratulations to Capillo. And congratulations to my daughter, Chanel Scott McCullum. And I wish everybody a very safe, healthy, and happy New Year. And please wear the mask.
After the year we've had, more than ever, we recognize the grand importance of New Jersey's local leaders. I was a city council person, I was a local mayor, and I understand that when there is a crisis, like I saw in the Great Recession and in Hurricane Sandy, the people that make a difference are New Jersey's local leaders, standing strong in the breach, in the storm, making sure that we stay Jersey strong.
We are so excited to be celebrating National Law Enforcement Day today. It is an honor to be able to bless the law enforcement of our town of Piscataway and neighboring towns around us. They have come through in a drive-through line this morning and received a special breakfast box packaged up by some of our volunteer parents who have donated small goodies and things for them to have a breakfast, as well as a special mug, tumbler that Timothy has bought them to let them know how much we appreciate them. And then they drove up to our second drive-through window and received a hot cup of coffee and a breakfast sandwich donated by McDonald's of Piscataway. And we are so grateful that we had the opportunity to do that with them this morning. They also received special cards that were handmade for them by some of our elementary students, and those elementary students got to actually walk up to the cars and hand deliver those, as well as some special cheers from our cheerleaders today. We hope the officers feel blessed.
Okay, we're down here on this very chilly Saturday morning in January for the annual swearing in of the Holmes Marshall line officers and the Lady Auxiliaries officers. All right, at this time, could everybody please raise your right hand? Repeat after me. I. And state your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of New Jersey. That I will bear true faith. And allegiance to the same. And to the governments established. In the United States. And in this state. Under the authority of the people. That I will faithfully. Impartially. And justly. Perform all the duties. Of the office, and state your office. According to the best of my ability. So help me God. Well, I want to thank all the officers. Congratulations, and to the ladies' auxiliaries.
Okay, our second guest for the January 2021 Eye on Piscataway is none other than the superintendent of the Piscataway School System, Dr. Frank Ranelli, who we'll have for about a few minutes to talk about some updates that was announced by the Board of Education in regards to the education of our children in our school system. So, Dr. Ranelli, you announced, the school district announced a hybrid for the third marking period. Can you explain in detail what that is to the general public, because not people necessarily who may have school children in the
Sure.
system may not know?
Sure. So thank you very much. First of all, Happy New Year, and thank you very much for inviting me on I Am Piscataway. It's always a good time when I'm here. So thank you very much, and Happy New Year to everyone. Basically, our district is going to go to a hybrid in-person return starting February 1st. Now, I will say that if parents choose, they can continue their children on all remote if they choose to do that. But the students who are choosing to come to the schools in in a hybrid fashion will come to school in one of two groups. And basically, the group one, let's just say I was in group one. The first week I would go to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Group two would go to school Tuesday and Thursday and Friday. And the next week, group one would go Monday and Tuesday, and group two, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So group ones would always go Monday and Tuesday. Groups two would always go Thursday and Friday, and we would alternate the Wednesdays.
So Wednesday would be sort of like a float day.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. Was that you attempted to do that earlier in the first quarter, and then obviously we had the issue with an uptick in the COVID. So
Right. So our plan was to come back actually the beginning of the second quarter, which was November 16th. And the uptick in the numbers, and as well as I do, Middlesex County being almost at the top of the list or near there every day. The board felt it was a good decision to wait through the holidays, just in case there was any necessary travel or anything like that, for the families as well as the staff.
And a lot of people don't realize it's just not about the school children. It's also about the professional staff and also the support staff within the district too, because they have families also.
Yeah, I'd like to shout out to them. They've been doing an excellent job with the all remote learning, and working extremely hard in taking care of our kids to the best of their ability. So I appreciate all of their hard work. Whatever position they hold in the district, are doing a great job.
Yeah. Now, what about those families that want to keep their children to the all remote mode? What entails with that?
Sure, they'll continue to access their classes. And since September, we've had all live classes that the students interact with the teachers, such as we're doing right now. They'll continue to access the same way. And there'll be some kids, that are in person in the class. And a majority of the kids at this point, with the percentage that we have coming back, will still be in an all remote fashion and continue to access the classes the way they're doing it at this current time.
I like to do an analogy with this all remote. It's almost like what's going on in the corporate world where, obviously they're not traveling to actually do in-person meetings now. So now people are in the corporate world are getting used to, on a more consistent basis, to do remote seminars and things of that nature. Even
us as we, whether it be the central office or the administrative team, or even faculty meetings, we're doing them all through Zoom right now, just to keep people safe, right? To keep that social distance and to keep people as safe as possible, while we're gearing up for this return in February.
Now, what about there's still food deliveries are obviously still going to be taking place?
Yeah, the same food delivery will continue. We deliver food to families at 6 different sites 2 times a week. And it's not only for the free and reduced lunch student, it's for everyone in the district. So if you're a school-age child and you could come with an ID, you'll be able to get meals for a few days at a time, Mondays and Thursdays at the set locations.
Okay, that's good to know, because there was an article in the New York Times about how even college students are having issues with food and things like that.
Right.
So
and it's a situation where we understand parents, may be out of work or maybe struggling in certain ways that aren't normally on free and reduced lunch. So we offer food to everybody in the district, and that's not just Piscataway. It's all the districts in New Jersey who choose to participate. It stems from the federal government pushing down the funds down to us as well.
okay. Now the other, I guess, the 800-pound weight is the athletics.
Sure.
Where's the State Department of Health going in regards to allowing for athletics?
Sure. So the NJSIAA, as everybody knows, is the governing body over athletics for high school in New Jersey. And, they continue to put out rules and regulations and dates for returns and things like that. Now, as you know, we did not participate in the fall athletics, but we are planning to participate in the winter athletics. And there's different dates for different returns of particular sports. And all high school families were aware and know of the dates. Boys and girls basketball, bowling, and cheerleading the practices begin this coming Monday. And competitions begin the 26th of January. Swimming and winter track, which the community center is going to be involved in that, which we appreciate very much. They'll begin February 1st, and then wrestling will begin March 1st, and all with condensed seasons, a lot of rules in place, a lot of social distancing, rules about when to wear masks, how many people in the gym, things like that. So our hope is to continue to move forward and participate. We're all set for Monday's practices, and we'll see how they go.
And I'm sure the athletes are going to be happy to get back into the swing of
Yeah,
it.
and so are we. I mean, we want to give the kids as many experiences as we can, whether it be athletic or extracurricular. We have a lot of extracurricular clubs that are being held virtually while the kids can't be in person. So, we're trying our best to give the kids the experiences they're used to and they want, and we're looking forward to for our kids to be able to compete.
Well, I want to thank our superintendent of the Piscataway school system, Dr. Frank Ranelli, for stopping by in January 2021 for the Eye on Piscataway. We look forward to seeing you in the future, Dr. Ranelli.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. And once again, Happy New Year and have a great day.
Thank you very much.